believed I belonged to. Shahid was completely South Asian and completely cosmopolitan at the same time, and in his poems I could sense the presence of both Ghalib and Eliot of the West as well as the subcontinent. But as I delved into his work, I discovered that there were more layers than I could have ever imagined. Shahid was a beneficiary of three cultures, Hindu, Muslim and Western, and at his home poetry was recited in four languages: English, Urdu, Persian and Kashmiri. Although he wrote in English, his poems in essence captured the sensibilities of all these languages and traditions. His father, Aga Ashraf Ali, was an educationist with a socialist inclinations and introduced him to the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru and Martin Buber. While his mother, Sufia Aga, a Sunni Muslim from Uttar Pradesh, sang bhajans to him and dressed him as Krishna for Janmashtami. While on the one hand his paternal grandmother, Begum Zafar Ali, was a devout Shia Muslim who taught him about Islam, on the other hand he went to a Catholic school and throughout his formative years was fascinated by Christ. I soon realized that Shahid was the sum total of these different cultures and learnt from all of them, that he never viewed them as contradictions but simply as different worldviews that later coalesced into his poetry. In his poems, there is not only the presence of these cultures and traditions, but also several allusions to the works of other writers and poets. Much like Eliot had done in some of his poems, Shahid weaved into his work the words of other poets, such as Oship Mandelstam, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Emily Dickinson, John Milton, Rainer Maria Rilke, Paul Celan, Yanis Ritsos, Octavio Paz, and C.P. Cavafy, who for me at the time were not his precursors but poets who flowed through him. It was almost as if his poems had doors which one could open and enter a different world altogether. They, the readers, should be devouring poetry all the time, and some of the pleasures is in recognizing, Shahid once said in an interview. He was indeed a poet in whose works existed a universe, and in time the influence of all the poets I discovered through Shahid's poetry shaped my understanding of history, geography and language in numerous ways. At the same time, as I read these poets, my admiration for Shahid grew. Shahid's poems, I realized, were on the same pedestal as the poems of those others, and I came to respect him even more, for he was, from my point of view, the centripetal force that bound all of them together for me. In the summer of 2016, I moved to New Delhi for my master's degree in English literature. It was the city Shahid was born in 1949, and where he spent 7 years of his life from 1968 to 1975. In Delhi, I saw Shahid's poetry everywhere. In the streets that light up with the smiles of beggars, at Jama Masjid, I witnessed how the minarets camouflaged the sunset, how the prayers rose brick by brick. Although I could trace Shahid's poems in Delhi and Srinagar, when I started looking for the poet, there wasn't much, barring a few articles and tributes by his friends and students, some academic papers on the internet, and the introduction to the Veiled Suite by his friend and poet Daniel Hall. Now that I look back, I believe it was the summer of 2016 that I first thought about writing Shahid's biography. Although I had already started reading beyond his poetry, discovering him through his family and friends and writing about him while I was still at university. In January 2018, I met Shahid's brother, Aga Iqbal Ali, at the India International Centre in Delhi to discuss the biography for the first time. I narrated a trove of stories about their childhood, stories that had led to poems. I sat and simply listened to all that he had to say. After a few meetings in May 2018, I found myself in Srinagar at Sufia Nishan, Harmony 3, the house.